Welcome in, everyone. UGA Football Live with JC Shelton, joined by my co-host and analyst, former Georgia and NFL tight end, Lynch. Good to see you again, my man. We have week 1 of college football. Georgia plays football this weekend in Athens, Georgia, in Sanford Stadium at Dooley Field against Marshall. Really pumped about that. Great slate of weekend games as well. One of the best opening weeks in a while, it feels like. I do want to mention it. Open up the show with this, guys. It's a great, I think, rollout by the NIL store, Georgia NIL store. Licensed official apparel in partnership with athletes, Gunnar Stockton, Nate Frazier, Raylan Wilson, Ellis Robinson, a ton of guys, Zachariah Branch, the USC transfer. A ton of guys are partnered with the NIL store in Georgia, and you can get 20% off your order. UGA Live in all caps is the promo code. Get 20% off and support your players and help support the show. Really appreciate it. So I just want to mention that. And we'll get straight into it already with a word from what we think will be starting quarterback Gunnar Stockton.
Growing up on a farm, it meant everything to me. Just being able to get out and do stuff with my dad, spend some time together, get some hard work done with the cows. I got them when I was a junior in high school, and it really taught me how to work hard, and I enjoyed messing around with them. Just some memories fishing with my dad at the pond. It was awesome. My old truck is my granddad's. His second truck he's ever had in his life, so it's really special to me, and it was the first truck I learned how to drive. I drove it all through high school, still drive it today. I really enjoyed it and enjoy fixing it up, and when I drive back to his house and be able to see the smile on his face, it means the world to me. Dad always had me doing something around the farm, so that sometimes involved throwing the football, and I always cherish that moment with my dad, having him run some routes for me.
That's incredible.
Tiger legend, Tiger Georgia legend, Gunnar Stockton. Dude, I just couldn't help, and that's honor reserve, his partnership with them. Congratulations, Gunnar Stockton on that. But it's such a stark difference, and I don't have any hate to either of these examples. But going from a Carson Beck private airplane deal, Lamborghinis, influencer girlfriend, to Gunnar Stockton, and what you just kind of saw about his life in that commercial, the differences are just incredible on a year basis.
Well, you and I talked about it last time. It's like different cup of tea, no judgment either way. Like,
right,
be who you want to be, but you can't find like a more stark, like a comparing set of like personalities, I guess, or stark differences between two personalities, or at least perceived personalities. I don't know either one of them, so who am I to like judge either one? Not judge, but like assume. But man, that's like that's a different cup of tea. But as I said, like, and I imagine Gunner's pretty smart. Like, he knows what to lean into, because I'm sure Honor Reserve is set him up with a good deal. And I saw some other some product placement in there from Ford and Coca-Cola, and he's wearing. So he's not a dumb kid. I'm sure if he wins a few games, Coca-Cola is right down the road, and I'm sure there's a large Ford dealership somewhere by that's willing to give him a ring.
Yeah, bring back the hard bodies, Ford. Gunnar Stockton in partnership. Let's go into position group. We got position group previews with defensive backs and special teams highlight. Got an injury there that's of note. So we'll get into it. We'll get into some Marshall tidbits, and then predictions. We'll go conference and national title before pick them. We'll go 5 games. So we'll pick against the spread. You can pick a total if you want to. So we'll get through a lot to get through today, but we'll get through it and get us all prepared for Georgia Marshall too. But so what we haven't got to in this previews is defensive backs. Obviously, a large part of this defense, something that Kirby Smart, Will Muschamp, Robinson, and all those guys do very, very well. We're used to dominance there. We're used to really good play, and Georgia recruits really well at this position. That's really, really easy to see. Ton of 4- and 5-star guys back there. You got some transfer guys who have really experience to add to a very young group, right? You lose Malachi Starks. You lose Dan Jackson. about the safety, right? You had KJ Bolden step into that role and play a lot last year alongside those guys, which I'm excited about, and that how that's going to carry over that experience with them and learning the defense, kind of getting thrown into the fire, but with a lot of good players back there. We'll start with corner. And already I've seen a lot of talk in this offseason about this, and because you have, Dalen Everett coming off an all-SEC season, played really well against Texas in those two matchups. He can be that lockdown guy. I think he proved that last year. Also really good run support. But then, so really it's that CB2 spot that everybody's been talking about. You have Daniel Harris, just athletic as all get out. Struggles at times though, right in man. And he's let some long balls go past him. Which happens, right? But you like to see less of it. But he's really improved as a tackler. So he comes in kind of on the rise here, and he's battling Ellis Robinson the fourth, really the highest rated cornerback commit in Kirby Smart era history. 5-star, didn't get to play a lot last year. He's, battling with Daniel Harris, Julian Humphrey there. But he's come on strong the fall, in another year in this system. Kirby Smart asked a lot of these guys. So those two have been rotating. I see, it's everybody's either clawing at the bit for some tidbit of information around this throughout the preseason, and that that includes spring really too, right? So reports out of fall camp, or hey, this guy started this scrimmage, or this guy started this scrimmage. The reality is that they were rotating series with Ellis and Daniel. So I think it's safe to say these guys are going to rotate a lot, and especially against Marshall. I think it almost might be a situational thing. For whoever, it's all about matchups, or I think now more than ever in this game. So if Georgia feels good about one of these guys and gets an upcoming opponent, whether that be Tennessee or Bama or Ole Miss, whoever it is, I think they're confident enough to go with these guys because how much they're getting reps. And then DeMelo Jones, same class as Ellis, really talented, played a ton of positions in high school. He can do it all. We're really excited to see him, especially in man, and how his long frame matches up. But again, I think we just expect a rotation here. The talent is there, right, being in the right spot and tackling well. Already, that's Kirby Smart's biggest thing. I've really honed in on this fall camp is him talking about tackling. And I mean, it really starts with cornerbacks and the edges. I think that's where Georgia's gotten bitten, especially by running quarterbacks. And you're going to see a lot of them this year, man. So can you set the edge and be a willing tackler?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately when you're looking at rotation of defensive players, like, and who's going to be the starter, and I don't really think it matters per se, but like that's more of creating a environment of competition, but also developing players, right? Because the way Georgia plays defense and the way they really always have played defense is you might have one or two guys that are going to be like 3-down players, right? 4-down players, play 80 snap, whatever, X amount of snaps every snap in the field. But I think ultimately the way Georgia has built their defenses in the past is they're just trying to build for depth, because it's like their defenses are kind of built like basketball teams, right? Like they're not trying, like they're not, when I say basketball team, I don't mean like a LeBron James Cleveland Cavaliers basketball team. I mean like we're rotating 4 or 5 guys in and out, right? Because they want to stay fresh. They want to be able to pressure the quarterback. They want to be able to play full speed all the time, cover ground. And so, yeah, I'm sure they're trying to figure out who's going to be the starter. But when I read into that, my guess is, both of those guys are going to see a lot of snaps. Maybe the guy who's starting, maybe one guy starting there might go play like nickel or play like whatever. When you're specifically talking about the DBs, right? But you can also see in the defensive line, right? Like,
Right.
When we had the all-time defense, right? Was it 2022, right? That
21.
defensive line, 21, excuse me. The championship game, I think, was in 2022, but in 2021 was a season. But that entire season, you're looking at that defensive line. And if you look at like their total snap count at the end of the year, or even like their statistics, they didn't pale in comparison of some of the other All-Americans, but like they were not like leading the country in like sacks as an individual, right? Because you would see them come in for one play, for 2 plays, and just rotate these guys in and out to keep them fresh. And I think Georgia has always been that way on defense under Kirby Smart. So, when you see quarterbacks rotating, that's a little bit different. I think when you see other positions rotating, it's just more of it's a product of the actual development of the player and development of the defense that they're trying to put on the field.
Right. I like that. So why not keep the competition going if you can?
Totally.
Or you just name a starter and that guy thinks he's good or he's set, and maybe some complacency sets in subconsciously. Maybe he doesn't want that and he's going against that, but maybe it does. And then I almost like the fact that I like that, obviously, competition, but also like having these guys ready to come in situationally, right? So maybe Georgia decides that they want to play more zone against a certain offense, whether it be Tennessee or whatever, and you play to those guys' strengths. So they're used to coming in when you need them, or playing a lot of snaps all at once because you need them situationally because you're playing a certain type of defense, and that's their strength. So I think play to your strengths and rotate these guys to what you see situationally fit, because I think the talent's definitely there. Excited to watch these guys, especially cornerbacks. Now, we talked about rotating here, but also, I think the safety group in almost all three of these positions, strong, free, and star. I think these guys are being developed, and Kirby Smart talks about this. Will has in the past too, is preparing all these guys for these roles, and they ask a lot from these positions. Like Jonell's played all three of these positions, Jonell Aguero, and you can expect these other guys to, I think, be able to do that well. Just be in the right spot, because you never know who's going to go down, or who might step up in a certain role that maybe they didn't get a lot of snaps of in fall camp, but they get it in game time and they do really well, and then he moves some pieces around. But what we have is Corey Thomas, friend of the show, has been on. He was on last year. Great attitude. Really excited for him and his opportunity here because of Malachi and Dan going off at strong. Senior, been in the system. He's the most experienced guy in the system in the secondary. So you like that. He's going to know where to be. And Kirby Smart's always talked well about his development and in that aspect. He has battled some injuries in fall camp, hasn't got as many reps. So that has given Zion Branch, the USC transfer, followed his brother Zachariah over from USC. And then Rashawn Jenkins, a freshman. Now, I think Thomas is really a key for me, I think, as a guy who knows where to be to help along these other guys through transfers. And there's more here we're going to get to at Star. But I think that's a big key, is to have him in this game and getting him healthy. Branch is kind of a puzzle, though, because battling injuries at USC, hasn't had a ton of game time, but he has flashed at camp. He's one of those guys who's a clear leader, plays above his years. And I think physically, he's pushing 220, 6'2". What kind of matchup is he going to be, especially against these tight ends that we see in the SEC, who can really evolved in recent years. At free, KJ Bolton, man, everybody's talked a lot about him over the offseason. I've seen some preseason All-American comps for him, stuff like that. I mean, 4 and 5-star. He played like that last year, I think, at times. And I just remember the hits he was throwing on Texas coming down like a rocket. But he looks one of the smallest players on the field. But man, he comes down and he plays above that, which is that's the type of attitude I think people really love to see, which is why he's a fan favorite. But he's going to take that experience. It's going to be key in here, because he's kind of that guy at free. You got 2 freshmen behind him. Said some of these other guys can maybe rotate in and help him out when he needs to be off the field. But I think this is his year to really prove that. To prove that he can lead this defense. A lot's going to be put on him from that perspective. He was an early enrollee. He's been here a little longer than his years might tell you. It's just second year here, but he's been here like 2.5. And then other than that, Robinson, a lot to experience for as a first-year player there, but he was one of the top athletes in the country, though, right? So a lot of these guys were safeties coming out, but some of them are also just athletes. They played multiple positions, even talking to DeMelo Jones. Just athleticism throughout this secondary is really, really good. So the names you might not recognize, other than Bolden and guys like Dalen Everett coming out on the field, but I give them a chance and see what they do. I'm pretty optimistic. And we'll get through the star position here. We got 2 transfers already, learning a new system, and learning from some of the best defensive backs coach in the country too, all at once. Is Adrian Maddox, right, and Jaden Harris. Adrian Maddox, UAB transfer, had a great season last year. 44 tackles, 7 pass breakups, had a pick 6. That UAB squad. Just not too sure what to expect, given what's asked out of the position and him learning a new system. But he played really well when he was given those opportunities last year. He's flashed here too. I think he's being talked about as that kind of that 1B to Jonel Aguero, which is interesting to me because of how long Jonel's been in that system. So if he can get up to speed, which I don't think will be maybe early, you can expect how these players are. Do you think that's a good question for you as a guy who's been in this position and had to learn a system like that? I wasn't transfer wise, but you still had to learn it on offense. But it's pretty interesting when you think of the player you are week 1 and the player you are week 6.
Yeah, so I mean, the amount of growth that you experience on a week by week basis is pretty staggering, right? Because when you're in the off season, let's say you have a red shirt year that first year, right? Like you don't know what's going on your freshman year camp. You're just trying to like go full speed, do as many things right as you can because you're going to do so many things wrong, and just like slowly try to like acclimate yourself to being a college football player or whatever, right? But if you redshirt each week, you're kind of building on just again finding a role and trying to add value wherever you can. But when you start playing, right, and you're trying to learn the system, it's almost different. The system that you learn in practice it's the same system, but it's just like a whole different environment when you start playing real games because the speed is so much different, right? A lot of people think the game speed is actually faster, but I would argue that things move a little bit slower because in practice, right, you particularly at a place like Georgia, you might be going against an All-American pretty much, in my case, it was Jarvis Jones or Jordan Jenkins or all these different types of guys, right? And like they know the snap count, they can read things, they know every single one of your tells. So like it's kind of a reassuring thing when you get to live speed or live games because at first you think the games are going to be harder, and sometimes they are, right? Like sometimes you're just playing an absolute stud of a team with like dudes across the board, but in a lot of ways like you're surprised by the game speed because you're actually already acclimated to it. So the hard part is like trying to settle the nerves down early on and really kind of seeing, not just doing your job right by what the play call is, but like putting yourself in it, being super present pre-snap to be like, okay, what exactly am I trying to accomplish? Like if I'm a tight end, right? What, where is this defensive end line, right? Is it a 5 technique with a 9, right? Is it head up? Is it outside? If it's an outside with a 4-man down, like I'm actually going to step inside on a zone away because I want to try to go up to the backside safety. I'm not really worried about the defensive end because he's not going to catch that from behind, right? And so it's one of those things that your game one when you get system, like you're just like holding your breath to like, okay, what's my job? Do your job. And that usually is enough. But as you like your first play of the game to like the last play of the game, like slows down, right? Because you're just like, okay, you're now getting more confident in what the defense is giving you or offense is giving you in this particular case, right? And so each week you build on that, and it's pretty cool because eventually by the end of the season, like how you feel going into a practice is how you feel going into a game in terms of like your level of confidence. You're like, I know I can play at this level and I can, decipher things a little bit differently as this, within each snap. Like I'm not worried about just doing my job. I'm actually thinking like 3, 4, 5 different levels of from a football perspective. And that only comes with repetition, but it's very hard to like have that week 1, play 1 when you're new, because you're just so worried about, I got to do the right thing. I got to get the right call. I got to like, you know what I mean? Like you're just worried about doing your job. You're not necessarily worried about doing it to like perfection, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So I expect some mistakes from these guys. I mean, I'm not going to be surprised for it. I don't think you should be concerned either, because you learn from those good players do. Jayden Harris is the other guy we haven't talked about really. I mean, transferring from Miami, 40 tackles, a sack, and a pick last year. A junior, is just like Adrian Maddox and Zion Branch here in this defense. learning a lot at once. I think if I had to project, I think Georgia's going to play what they believe to be their top group a lot against Marshall to see how these guys, because they haven't played together in a game like that. They've gotten snaps here and there, but considering the guys who left and how much, Malachi and Dan Jackson, those guys took up in this group, I think they're really going to lean on these guys to see how they perform together because it is such a cohesive group. You need them to be cohesive, I should say. And then these other guys, I think, are going to get their opportunities as well. We'll move on because we got a packed show from this, but position group for special teams. And this is already, we talk about optimism, and one of the things you cannot control in large part is the injury bug. And I don't remember seeing Georgia as healthy coming into a season, which is really good. And really two things here is Malachi Tolliver, the signee. He's been playing behind Drew Bobo at center. He's expected to be out. And then Brett Thorson, the punter, is. And, Georgia, I think it's easy to say Georgia has a top 5, probably the best special teams unit in the country this year. One of those, key parts is obviously Brett here. Toward the ACL against Texas in the SEC championship game. Now, he has been punting, but necessarily being cleared to play from that ACL is the hiccup here. He hasn't been fully cleared. And all things considered, judging by what Kirby Smart said in reports, I think it's safe to say he won't be performing on Saturday against Marshall. And I will think he will be back. If he's actually punting in practice and such, I think he will be back this season, probably earlier than later. But, he was a Ray Guy Award finalist, second-team All-America, preseason first-team All-America. When he's back, Georgia is much better. Drew Miller, though, not to say anything bad against my boy Drew, young guy, former number 1 punter as a recruit. He's in his place, in Thorson's place, I should say, averaged 39.8 in his first start against Notre Dame. It's not great, but another offseason of work for him and what has been a really good special teams program under Kirby Smart. I think he'll do just fine. And then Peyton Woodring, man, just dependable. He's a young guy, but Lou Groza Award semifinalist season last year, coach's first team All-SEC, went 3 for 3 in the SEC title game, and that overtime win, 56.6% of his kickoffs have gone for touchbacks. And then really what brings it all together for me is, when's the last time Georgia's had a threat at returner, like a true threat? It's been a while. Have you had some dependable hands, guys who make good decisions, right, on whether to let it drop, throw up a fair catch sign, maybe get a few extra yards here and there, but a really threat to bring it to the house or get 50 yards on a return, that is Zachariah Branch. I remember watching him in the spring, man. He just looks different on the field. He moves different, and smooth is fast. It doesn't look like he's really pumping it. You know what I mean? He just, as he moves, he looks really, really quick. And he gains yards on guys so quickly. And then the angles you have to take on him are just incredible.
Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. That's what they say.
I love it. And I think that's what Zachariah Branch brings to this. But you also have guys like Dylan Bell and Cash Jones who are really dependable hands-wise back there and have been over their careers. So you have that option as well situationally, or Zachariah Branch just, takes one of the house as a receiver. You need somebody else to help out in the next possession. I mean, you have options here, but I think Zachariah Branch is really what makes this group and special teams really dangerous at the standpoint of really controlling the football game and flipping the fields, but also might score one.
As long as there's good ball security there, right? Because historically, Georgia has always had the talent of good returners, but at least in my experience with Coach Rick, and I think this is probably the case for Kirby too, is like they are always like they will sacrifice a little bit of potential explosiveness for sure-handedness on punts. I know that was the case. So that's how Rhett McGowan really started getting like a lot of playing time for us early on, was that he just caught everything, right? And he was tough as hell. So like, he was never going to take it to the house. Like he could, but he'd always get you positive yards. And he was never going to hurt you. So you talk about Dylan Bell. Like Dylan Bell's a sure-handed guy. If Zachariah Branch can be a sure-handed guy, but also show that he's explosive, like that, to your point, is a huge upside for the special teams, because typically the more explosive guys are like, they're so quick, like quick twitched, like that they want to move before the ball gets there. And
Mm.
like that's kind of where it's not that they can't catch. It's just like their mind, their feet are moving too fast for their mind. Right. And
Yeah.
it's the greatest returners are the ones who have that explosiveness, but are also super, super patient. So I'll be interested to see, because I think if you have a great returner, man, it's such a game changer, particularly when the kickoff is kind of becoming more obsolete and the punt is becoming more and more of like a live play.
Right. Right. And don't put me back there, coach.
No.
I'll bring you some Gatorade. I'm good on that. I don't want to be catching that thing.
No, sir.
What to know about Marshall? Let's get into Marshall a little bit. Listen, and this is 2 words for you: transfer portal. This was a really weird offseason for Marshall. And Kirby Smart's talked about, how difficult it's been evaluating because of how the transfer portal worked within this program. But, Charlie Huff led the Herd to a Sun Belt title last season, 10-win season too. Ends up leaving because of contract disputes. And then, of course, what does that mean? You get an extra 2 weeks, I believe it is, of transfer opportunities for your players. And 50 guys wound up in the portal. Now, Tony Gibson's in now. He signs 56 of his own. So just, imagine the scouting department there and all the work that has to go into that. And how long do you take away from your other future matchups that you want to look into, or just name anything. They have to take away time to do this. But, Gibson, as far as his resume, assistant head coach at Michigan and Arizona, most recently the DC at NC State since 2019. They had some good defenses in that time frame. So you're not sure what to expect. I think Gibson has proved that he is a commendable head coach, or a coach, I should say, and DC especially. Player-wise, though, like I said, hard to evaluate, but a couple of guys to watch out for here. It's Tony Mathis at running back. He's a junior. He's a Cedartown native, Nick Chubbtown. Played for Houston in 23 before missing last season due to an injury. I think he had 5 touchdowns previous season. Akron transfer Adrian Norton averaged 19.3 yards per catch last year. He's their explosive option on the outside. Defense, Jadarius Green McKnight. He kind of does it all at linebacker. Former FSU transfer. They use him in rush packages. They use him in coverage, obviously, and then against the run, he's pretty commendable. So those are kind of the key guys to watch. And in a team like this with so many transfer portal additions and questions there, you're going to get guys who might step up here that we won't know. But quarterback-wise, most importantly, Marshall elected not to name a starter here. Probably a good decision. You had a competition going. Why give the Georgia staff the guy that you need to watch more tape on? But it's between Atlanta native Carlos Del Rio Wilson, he's a former Florida and Syracuse transfer, and then Zion Turner, Jack State and UConn transfer. Georgia's sitting at minus 39.5, and the total's at 55.5 already. And we say this when we play non-power teams or FCS opponents. Georgia doesn't necessarily go into these and say, I'm going to put 70 burger on this. I want to pump my stats for all my players. It's more like we're going to play really well in the first half, execute, right? And then I'm going to let the guys in who might make more mistakes because I wanted to put them in the moment and I want to see what we got. So betting Georgia to cover 40 is something I'm not going to use my fun coupons on, Artie.
No, it's insane. I mean, and I would imagine if they have a fairly strong lead, you'll see Gunner probably come out earlier and Ryan Puglisi going in earlier, because A, to keep things interesting, because Kirby loves to do that. B, give number 2 reps. But, I think ultimately Georgia's never worried about optics. They're worried about building depth and seeing what talent they actually have that's ready to play.
Right.
And there's as everyone should know, whoever watches college football, there's a difference between having good recruiting classes and good football teams, right? Some of your biggest recruits may never play it down, and some of your recruits you didn't hear about until they start scoring touchdowns, like you didn't know were good until they started scoring touchdowns, right? And that's just the nature of it. It's a little bit different in the NFL, but in college football specifically, it's like they need to figure out who they can play. And what I mean by that, or another way of saying they need to figure out who they can trust to play in live football games in meaningful snaps. And so that's why I don't think they ever look to go beat a team 70-0, because they want to see, like, okay, well, we know the starters can obviously play, or at least play well enough to beat a team they should beat. Can the number twos do that? Right. And so you'll probably see guys who are returning starters come out very early. And then you'll see guys who they are high on that need real live reps to go in earlier. Right. That's kind of the nature of the beast. So yeah, I think betting them to cover and take the points is probably not the best bet, but you never know.
Yeah. I'm with you, man. I think we'll see that. I think we'll see publicity for sure. I think Georgia offensively, man, and Kirby Smart's mentioned it a lot this camp and really over the spring, really the whole offseason and this run, the stinking football. He knows he's well aware that Georgia finished in the hundreds in almost every rushing statistic last year. Okay. And that's a problem, not just from that standpoint, but also winning football games and, having some closer ones than you'd like. So I can expect a heavy dose of this really talented running back room. And we talked about a few shows ago. We previewed, excited about those guys. And I think that opens up some opportunities and play action wise for Gunnar Stockton. They're going to let him throw it around, and Brian, especially to get this receiver group, because these receivers are so deep. Among the best players on Georgia's roster, a lot of them are. And Kirby Smart talked about it this week, how kind of different that is from years past. He has more receivers that he trusts talent wise than he has had. So I'm sure he wants to get those guys involved, see what they can do, get some reps under the belt, get some good footing, because in a couple of weeks you got Tennessee at Neyland Stadium. So I'm more comfortable with the under here at 55.5. And Georgia, 40-0, 42-0, something like that. But I could also see UAB getting some late scores, right? Backups guys come in 10-17 on the board, maybe. So that's why I'm not touching that spread, buddy. Not touching it. Let's get into predictions now. Let's talk a little nationally. We kind of had to ramp up late because we got a late start to this preseason show lineup. So let's get some predictions in here. We'll start with the biggest and best, the SEC. Artie, and I'll give it to you first, man. Obviously, off-season talks about around Texas. Really, if you take Arch Manning away from that, would they have been talked about as much? No, I don't think so. You also have Georgia number 5 there in the top 10. You have Alabama at 8. LSU there at number 9. I could see any of these guys really contending and getting there to Atlanta.
Yeah, Georgia, I think, is in a good position just because they've got some experience. Gunnar Stockton is not an experienced quarterback, but he's played in big games. And again, I think we will go as he goes. I actually think Alabama's going to be pretty good. I think they have a lot of talent. I think Ty Simpson, I've talked to some folks at Alabama. I think they're pretty high. I think they like what they have and the potential with Ty Simpson. Obviously, he doesn't have any experience. Milroe played every snap last year that he could. But I think Kalen DeBoer probably found out pretty quickly what it's like to be in the SEC, just the pressure and you need to be on your game 24/7, 365. Whereas in the Pac-12, the Pac-12, if you play a team like Vandy, you can kind of sleepwalk your way to a win. That's not the case in the SEC, right? And so I think they're going to be a lot better than probably their fan base thinks. I think their fan base is ready to fire them. Auburn, I don't know what's going on over there. There's been a lot of chatter, if you will. I'm not high on LSU, but Brian Kelly's got to win right away. I actually think Florida. And I've been higher on Billy Napier than most. but I actually think Florida could be pretty good. And I actually think South Carolina. I think Sellers, like, you can never count on a team that has a tier one starting quarterback with some athletes around him who he himself is an athlete and a coach that's a motivator and a recruiter. So they've got enough talent around him to be dangerous. I don't think they're going to win the SEC, but you tell me South Carolina wins 9 games, I'd be like, yeah, that checks out. But ultimately, I think it's going to come down to really one of 3 teams, or 3 teams to think Texas, because even if they don't do well this first game, they're just too loaded and too good of a football team not to go on a run. I think Alabama, very similar situation. And one thing about Ty Simpson, if he can spin it, right, which I think he can, he's got an offensive-minded head coach. And I think Georgia, for all the reasons we've talked about on this show for the past couple of weeks. But I know that's not like a sexy pick, but I do think the league is deep, but deep in different ways. I think Auburn's going to struggle. I think Mississippi State's going to struggle. I think Ole Miss is always a wild card because of their coach, but they're always going to put up a lot of points. Arkansas, who knows? I think Oklahoma will be improved. I think Tennessee, people are sleeping on. I think it's more Heupel is like Heupel is the glue and the thing that drives it. I don't think it was Nico. So I think the quarterback that they got is going to be plug and play. I think Vandy's going to a lot of hype around Vandy this year. I think they're going to go regress, to be honest. Mm-hmm. And I do think South Carolina and Florida are going to be better teams this year. I think Kentucky and Vandy are probably going to be the bottom of the barrel with Mississippi State, and probably Arkansas. But I think the rest of the teams that I mentioned, with like the 2 wild cards being Auburn and Ole Miss, that if they ended up being good, I'd be like, I'm not shocked. And I could also see them end up being like 6-6 and be like, yeah, I'm not shocked. That makes sense.
Right. No, I think I agree in several areas there, dude. To me, it's like you look at the Big 12, which is going to be very entertaining this year, but there's only a few teams from a talent perspective that you're like, okay, those are probably going to be in it at the end. Big 10, extremely top heavy. Oregon, Penn State, Ohio State. USC is kind of like Ole Miss.
Totally.
Right? Wild card. What they did last year, and they had they lost a lot of close games. So they turned that around. They could easily be in contention there. Mm-hmm. But you're talking about talent who can take down the likes of a really good, talented Penn State team and Ohio State team that lost a lot, but they recruited really well. Ryan Day has proved that he can at least do it. And they had a bunch of questions going into last year too. So it wasn't like they were, this amazing juggernaut who we all expected to be in there. ACC, probably the most top heavy out of them all, right? Yeah. It's Clemson and who else for me. So I'll go ahead and name my ACC one. It's not going to surprise anybody. Clemson, I was high on them last year before they played Georgia. I stuck with them after they played Georgia. They ended up winning the ACC title, and they return a lot of those guys. And you think position groups, Clemson has a big edge on a lot of people. And another year with Cade, and who showed that he could improve. They were like, his talent-wise, really, really talented guy coming out of high school, or can he put it together on the field? And he had some early mistakes when he was younger, and then he showed last year that he can develop. And imagine another year.
I think he's a stud.
I think so too, man. And you think of today's game, a dual threat guy and how he can really hurt you, but he's really developed as a passer.
He kind of reminds me of Bo Nix, the final product of Bo Nix. And Bo Nix, so I always liked Bo. I like Bo since he beat Oregon his first college game ever. But, he a lot of volatility in those Auburn years, but the ability to throw, run, tough, like the guys around him play well for him. They got a dude at Clemson for sure in Cade. And that's all. Again, man, that's really all you need. Not all you need to win a national championship. That's all. To be the top 12 team in the country, if you got a quarterback, you got a chance.
Yeah. And Dabo Swinney's done it before, and he knows how to get through a up and down season, right? Because a season's not a straight upwards trajectory, right, for even the best teams. Right? And even the teams that went undefeated, they were that close from not doing that, right? So I think he's a guy you can lean on too, and one that may be a little bit overlooked, and I say that hesitantly because they are number 4 team in the stinking country. But skipped around a little bit there with the ACC, but I guess just sticking on him for a second, Miami. I think Carson Beck, we've seen him have success before. Can he do it again? That's the biggest question. He's done it. Just returned to form. But then that offense, who are you going to throw to? Lost a lot of receivers. They've tried to rebuild in the transfer portal. I think their line's going to be pretty good. Defensively has always been their issue. They revamped that this year. I just don't know. You look at position group by position group and guys who've proven and done it, play winning football, Clemson has the edge. It's just really that simple for me.
It's a program.
Right, exactly. It's more of a program than that team was for Miami last year, who had some success, but then, of course, kind of bit themselves in the butt towards the end. But the SEC, dude, I agree with – that's why it's going to be so fun to watch because I think, like you mentioned there, South Carolina, Florida, Ole Miss is a wild card. I think even South Carolina, Florida, they can cause some issues. And Vanderbilt, even Vanderbilt caused a ton of issues last year. And look at who they beat. Number one team in the country on their field, right?
I'm with you on – I'm with you. And I thought we were going to go league by league here.
We were. I totally messed it up.
No, you're good. You're good. I like it because we're just kind of spitballing here.
Yeah.
I just don't know. Like, I think people woke up on Vandy now, and it's like, you can be talented enough to be if you can catch a team sleeping, you can beat them, right? But I don't think after what happened last year, I don't think anyone's gonna be sleeping going into Vandy, right? And it's like, Vandy has been talking a lot about like we've arrived, this and that, and maybe they have, but there's enough bears in the SEC, man. You poke them enough, they'll come knocking at your door, right? It's not just like the ACC we want Clemson, right? It's like, in the SEC, it's like we want LSU, we want Bama, we want Georgia, we want, Florida. It's like it's a deep league, man. I mean, I was watching the documentary or not the Netflix thing, and there's a reason why the tradition is rich. There's a reason why SEC has the most college or NFL players, right? The biggest stadiums, the nicest facilities, the highest paid coaches, right? It's because like it's where the big boys come to play more so than anywhere else. I think people always said like NIL is going to create like super, super top heavy teams. I think that might be the case. Like if you took like a massive step back, right? But I think if you look really internally at like the SEC, it's actually created a lot of parity, right? And like I think a lot like Ole Miss was a perennial joke for a long time. Now it is a team that they walk into anybody's house, they can come out with a win. And I think South Carolina, more success in the past 20 years than Ole Miss, but in the past, couple of years, tough. But I think they are now a team that is dangerous. Florida, we will see, but I do think they have a quarterback, and I do like their coach. And
that's one thing on Florida, real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I think for me, and I do agree with you both, that I think Napier proved that he has what it takes to contend.
Totally.
And I like how he's built things. And I think, kind of like what you say with Gunnar Stockton, they go as DJ goes. He is expected to start. I know he's had some injury issues, but it looks like he's back. For me, it's about Florida's schedule when we're thinking about the conference championship race. Same schedule as last year. They have I think they're ranked number one, or they might be top three in the country with the schedule again, strength of schedule this year.
Yeah,
it's horrible. So if they were able to do it, I think that would be more surprising against that schedule than just doing it in the first place.
Yeah.
So I'll just note that on Florida, but
I don't think Billy Napier will be fired by the end of the year. Is what I'm saying. I think
with DJ coming back at least next year. Yeah, I mean that would be weird.
I think he'll win enough football games regardless of what happens, where they'll be like, we got it. Like, this we at least have the right guy to right this ship moving forward, right? Will he win a national championship? Maybe not, maybe. But, like, he's going to win us 10 games year in, year out soon enough. This is kind of how I see it.
And I'll get into a little bit, too, on this team by team here when we do our pick 'em. We have 5 games, folks. We're going to pick spread and total. So I'll get into more of the teams there too, because we're going to mention a few of them. But for me, I'm going with Texas, and it's another one of the things that is why I bring up Florida and their schedule is Texas has one of the easier schedules in this. So not only do they have all the number one in blue chip ratio in the country, right? Questions at quarterback aside with Arch and how is he going to play? Is he going to be the guy everybody pits him out to be? Just supporting cast wise, and I think Arch Manning has the right enough attitude and work ethic and smart enough guy to improve throughout the season. That I think against that schedule and having to avoid some of the big boys, that they're able to get into Atlanta and probably eke out a win, depending on how healthy they are. So I got Texas there. ACC, Clemson, Big Ten. That's tough, man. I'm not as sold on Oregon as everyone is nationally. Man, I love Dan Lanning. You take a guy like Dylan Gabriel out, who was so good, like a coach on the field. How good are you offensively to keep up against some really, really good defenses? And then you got Penn State returning Aller, returning the top 2 rushers and Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton. You get Jim Knowles after Ohio State, leading their defense to number 1 ranking in the country defense and then national championship. You pull him over in the offseason to try to, adapt to the change after Abdul Carter goes in the NFL draft. I think they reloaded, kept some guys who were really talented that thought about the NFL draft. I think it's on Penn State to kind of show that, last season, 13 wins, school record, and first playoff appearance wasn't just a fluke. Now, again, Artie, this is weird. It's like you added some receivers in the transfer portal, but are they going to be good enough? Because you lost your top ones after you did not complete a single pass to a receiver against Notre Dame in the playoff. And that's just weird. And then who did those passes go to? Tyler Warren, who's in the NFL. So how do you adjust there? Can you run it 35 times in a row the entire season? Probably not.
If your defense is good enough, maybe, and Jim Knowles, if he's going to build a defense to be good enough, it would be him. Because there was a great article about him in the Wall Street Journal, basically about Penn State sniping him over. But Penn State's an interesting case because, I have some friends who are Penn State fans up here, just up north, and they're just like, oh, we got to get rid of Franklin. I'm just like, you guys are nuts, man, right? Like, it is so hard to be a perennial top 10 football team, right? Like, and then, the person who holds the crown, it rotates, right? Like, it just does. That's just how it works, and I do think that they are in a very good position. With that being said, and I think you probably agree with me here, it's like Ohio State is a wagon, right? And if any team in the past, let's call it 10 years, has been able to plug and play serviceable quarterbacks to play above their talent level, it's Ohio State, right? Like, think about how many Ohio State quarterbacks were either went on ridiculous runs, then did nothing in the NFL, like Heisman Trophy finalist, backups who turn, who take over for, the fan favorite starter, and then he goes and wins a national championship. That's obviously years ago with Urban Meyer, but it has always been the same offensive coordinator, Ryan Day, right? And so, in my opinion, Will Howard was a Kansas State transfer, right? It's like he wasn't, Justin Fields was really the only guy that was a 5-star guy that played up to being a 5-star guy, right?
I guess him and CJ Stroud.
Okay. No, but I forgot about, but
you're overly right there. Yeah.
And so and all the guys were highly recruited to their respective places. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying if the one area of concern for Ohio State is quarterback, I, as just an objective fan or objective, watcher of college football, I'm not worried about Ohio State. So if I'm Penn State, it's has my offense improved enough to be able to go toe to toe with Ohio State? Because their defense is going to be good, but to your point, it's that's who they should be chasing. Because Michigan, I think, will be fine, but I don't think they'll be great.
No, Oregon. Bryce Underwood's a true freshman, man, and you're playing some good defenses. This is not Big 12 defense here. And I love Arizona State, okay, but this is different.
I love Arizona State too. I thought I was going to bring it up later, but I do love them. We can talk about it next show, but
we'll get to them next. We'll get to them next too. I just Big Ten. I'm going with Ohio State again. You just kind of set me up there. I won't belabor the point, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's not my only concern. I tell you, the other ones are like running back room. Can your running back be as dominant? Because Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins were stars.
Yeah. They're
And how many
beasts,
big
for
plays do
sure.
they have, right? And then Matt Patricia on DC. He's done in the NFL. He hasn't done in college. I mean, it's something like, are you really that concerned? Not really, but it is one of those questions. We'll just put it that way. But I'm
That's a
just
question.
and then Penn State, I mean, they could easily do it. Man, I wouldn't be surprised if they did. Just given the talent they have and the returning experience, and the coaching staff they had, I think is really good. But you haven't historically done it. Even last year when you won 13 against top teams, I think their top 25 record had 0 wins on it last year, or it might be top 15. I might be misremembering it wrong. But you didn't beat the best to get there. I think you'll have to do it. You'll have to do it against Oregon. You'll have to do it against Ohio State this year. So that'll be a barometer. And if you do it, man, you're in there. And then Big 12, I think we both like Arizona State and Kenny Dillingham. They got Sam Leavitt back. I know they lose Skatebo, but man, Sam Leavitt, after Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year last year, Freshman of the Year, I should say. Then he returns with another offseason, and Kenny Dillingham is one of the best young coaches in the game.
Can I expand on Big 12 real quick? Because I actually like them as a conference. I think Baylor, I think, like, sneakily won 9 games last year. TCU also, like, sneakily won 9 games last year. I actually think Colorado. I think what's his name is legit. Dion. I think he's a good coach. I think he recruits really well, and I think he knows how to build a program.
Yeah, you remember already last year at the playoff time, there was like 5 teams that could have gone.
Yeah, 100%.
And it all came down to the last weekend.
I think Colorado is going to be a good football team. I think Arizona State is going to win it, but they're obviously going to probably be in the playoff, because I think if you win that conference, you're going to get it in the playoff. Right. I think Arizona is going to be much better. I know they lost Fish to Washington, but the coach they got from, I believe it was San Diego State or University of San Jose State, he's a hell of a football coach. And I think there's some stuff left in that cupboard from Fish that's still going to be pretty good. Or 2 years ago, Fish left. So this is the second year. Second year. Yeah. But I think the Big 12 is always got to worry about Oklahoma State. Like their coach, they're a wild card, but historically speaking, they put a good product on the field. At least some weeks they do. Some weeks it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But I'm actually pretty bullish. And people like, man, Lance Leipold at Kansas, they got a new stadium, $350 million invested in that program.
Yeah.
They are not a program of despair anymore, right? Like they've got the taste of winning in their mouth. And I don't know. I'm a big fan of the Big 12 conference. I think there's a lot of good football teams. I think there's some great coaches there, but it just kind of gets like, ever since Oklahoma and Texas left it's been kind of like seen as this kind of like second rate league. And I would argue that the league has actually improved since they left, just like top to bottom. Right. I don't know why that is, but I'm excited about Big 12 more so than I am about like Big 10 or ACC, because I think there's more quality football across the board.
Oh, dude, I completely agree when you compare against the ACC, for sure.
Yeah, totally. It's night and day.
Right. And I think there's a bunch of money that people, especially SEC people, don't realize it's in that conference. And, consider the transfer portal and the era we were in. I think you're right, is it has become – there's more contention there without Texas and Oklahoma. There's some good coaches in there. To me, it's like, win close games. Kansas, they had the talent to do it. They were like the preseason pick last year, and they just lost a bunch of close games. So who's that team that wins those close games like Arizona State did? And then Arizona State almost took down Texas in the playoff too. So, I mean, like, they can do it.
Game.
Oh, it was a fantastic game. But already I know
we can talk about it next week. But man, we're forgetting about a team we talked about last week. I think we talked about it on off camera, but Texas Tech's loaded. And
yeah,
I think Texas Tech could, I can't believe I forgot about them. But yeah, man, I think it's going to be a really fun college football season, because I think you're going to have your usual suspects in there, right? I think for sure you're going to have 2 SEC teams, maybe 3. You're going to have the big, but I think there's going to be like 1 or 2, maybe even 3 teams that sneak in the top 12. You're going to be like, oh, nice. Like we're rolling, right? We got some it's like, which is why I love the fact that the playoff has expanded, because whether the team gets blown out or not, it's like it's fun to see other teams on the mantle at least for a week to see if they can compete. So we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, and we'll get. I know we're going over a little bit. It was a packed show. We'll get into these pick'ems real quick. We'll take 5 minutes, but Texas Tech, we'll get into them too next week. We'll have to talk about them and their incredible money-filled transfer portal haul. All right, first pick'em of the season. We'll start Syracuse versus number 24 Tennessee in Atlanta's Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Tennessee getting 13.5 points here. Totals 50.5. I'm a big fan of Fran Brown. He knows how to beat Tennessee. He's proven that he's a good talent evaluator after winning 10 games in his first season last year with Kyle McCord, with a bunch of transfer guys at receiver, at DB, along the defensive line. He's made some good pickups in the transfer portal over the offseason. I think Syracuse keeps this one close. I think Tennessee wins because they can run the stinking rock. I think that's what ends up happening in the second half. But I like Syracuse to keep that one close.
Same. I was just going to say the same stuff. I like Fran Brown. Shout out Nick Williams, defensive line coach, Bainbridge, Georgia, South Georgia boy. I played with Nick for a couple of years before he transferred out. I think he ended up going to Alabama State, but I'm pretty sure it's from the same hometown as Kirby Smart. But he's done a very good job. He was with Coach Prime as a defensive line coach. He was at A&M before that, and it was at Georgia before that. And now he's D-line coach for Fran Brown at Syracuse. They have a lot of talent. They've recruited well. But I liked Kyle McCord. I was surprised Ohio State got rid of him, but they made the right decision. But when he landed at Syracuse, I watched him play a couple times. Tough kid. Team loved him. Fran Brown obviously loved him. That's tough to replace, but I think they've built that program up enough to where they can compete on a neutral field against Tennessee, although it won't be that neutral. So I'm with you. I think they don't get blown out, probably lose by 10 points, so they cover the spread, but I don't think they come away with the win.
Okay. Alabama at FSU. Alabama's coming at number 8. 13.5 points here as well, 50.5 total also, just like Tennessee and Syracuse. Alabama, of note, their best defensive lineman is getting ankle surgery, the tightrope that Brock Bowers had, Marius Mims had a while back, like McConkey. That's just got announced, honestly, since we got on the call here. And then they're missing Jam Miller, they're starting running back. Even despite those things, I think Alabama has something to prove. I think Thomas Castellanos, the Boston College transfer that went at Florida State, talked way too much smack, gave him way too much fire going into this matchup off a 2-10 season for the Seminoles. I think Alabama wants something to prove. And if they are going to be like already how good we think they're going to be, the Crimson Tide, then I have to take them here to cover in my mind. I think that 2 touchdowns I think is doable.
I think Alabama's defense is going to be drastically improved. I do think Ty Simpson's. I think he might be a player, right? And I agree with you. They got something to prove. The wild card here that makes me nervous against Alabama is a dynamic quarterback with Gus Malzahn calling play. And
yep, that is a wild card, dude.
Dude, Gus Malzahn. He just, even when they would lose to Alabama, it was always he just always played them tough.
Right.
And obviously beat him on several occasions. Probably the most successful coach against Saban, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Obviously he doesn't have the Auburn voodoo anymore, right? So I don't know. I don't know if he gets that, but that's the only thing that gives me pause about this game is Gus Malzahn calling plays with a dynamic, albeit cocky quarterback.
Now, is that pause enough to take FSU plus 13.5?
You said it's at FSU?
Yeah. He's thinking, folks.
Yeah, I think Florida State's going to cover. Alabama's going to win. But, dude,
hey, you could look like the smartest guy on the planet here on Saturday.
I mean, for my boy Christian Robinson, I hope they put 70 on him, right? But man, dude,
I feel you.
me creeps. That's all I got to say.
9 LSU at 4 Clemson, one of the biggest matchups of the weekend after the next two we're about to talk about. Clemson minus 3.5 here, total 49.5. For me, Artie, I've kind of we talked about this, so I won't rehash after my ACC championship pick. LSU has more questions overall, position group by position group, than Clemson. I love Garrett Nussmeier. I love the receivers that LSU have. I think they're going to cause a lot of problems. They're going to score a lot of points. Defense has been the issue for Brian Kelly in Baton Rouge. They are riding with a bunch of transfers in the secondary. While I think they might be really good in week 10, I don't think it's going to look great at Clemson. So I'm going Clemson to cover, and it might be more than a touchdown, but I'll take the 3.5 because I don't want to stick my foot in the mouth.
I'm with you. I think Clemson's going to beat them. My thing with, and maybe it's because we just hear a lot of noise about Kelly now because it's the SEC and it's covered way differently than Notre Dame. But when he was at Notre Dame, and they have a rabid fan base, like there was just never this much like controversy year in, year out. You know what I mean? Like he may have never won the big one or whatever, but like you always knew what you were going to get with a Coach Kelly football team, right? Like you were like tough, run the ball well, disciplined, good quarterback play, maybe not great quarterback play, but like really good tight ends. And I just feel like every year it's been super volatile. And they haven't had an identity. Even when they had a Heisman winning quarterback, they had no identity. And I think that, I don't know why that is, but that worries me. And I think right now they have no identity other than they have a potential first round quarterback in Nussmeier, right?
Yeah. Right now, like going into the first game, right? And that could change. I'm on the side of things that they could have an identity by week 3. And then they ride that to wherever their talent can get them. Because I like Weeks on defense. He's a great pass rusher. Now, but can you stop the run and stop the pass when you need to? We'll see.
So I'm taking Clemson as well. And who knows? Maybe they show us their identity, first snap of the game and they go on a run. But I have found that very weird for Brian Kelly at LSU specifically, because you look at all his other stops, Central Michigan, Cincinnati, and Notre Dame for 20 plus years, like 25 plus years, his team's always had identities. And for some reason at LSU, he has not been able to like establish an identity. And I think that's very bizarre.
I think it's a good point. All right, 6 Notre Dame at 10 Miami. Buddy, we talked about Miami earlier. Carson Beck, I think, could easily come in here in this offense under Shannon Dawson, who had the best offense in the country last year. Cam Moore goes number 1 overall. He was actually a transfer too, so they've proven they can do it with the transfer guy. Can you stop Notre Dame? New quarterback for Notre Dame, but they're so physical. They got their running back back. Love, really like him. Defensively, they're going to stop the run at least. All right, they're going to make you pass it, make Carson Beck beat them. Is this a factor that it's at Miami? I'm not really sure. I mean, that environment has gotten a lot easier to play in recent years when they were going through their struggles. Is it different this time? Could be. I mean, it's a season opener. You're number 10. This was a tough one, but I'm just going to go with Notre Dame and Marcus Freeman. And I know it's a different team and roster attrition and what have you, but, covering that Georgia game last year, I think they proved that, almost like what you're talking about, Brian Kelly, that's still the Notre Dame mantra. And I think that's just bad news for Miami.
I'm a big fan of Freeman. And I think he has brought he has recruited athletes at Notre Dame and developed them in a way that they haven't been developed and brought into Notre Dame in a long, long time. I just think he's a hell of a football coach. So I don't think they have any problem going into Miami and winning that game. And I think this quarterback, his grandfather was Lloyd Carr, the former head coach for Michigan, who won a national championship in Michigan and really lost his job because of that Appalachian State game, which kind of lives in college football lore. And that was in 2007, I think. Anyway, I think he's going to be a good quarterback, young, but they have a good running back, good offensive line. All the identities, the identities that Notre Dame has had on offense persist, right? Good offensive line play, tough, physical, discipline, tight end, boom, got it. Defense is very good. I think they brought a lot of people back from last year.
Yeah, I didn't lose much.
Yeah, I think they're going to be in a good position with Miami. But I do think Miami's going to be better this year. We'll see how much better. But I think they lost a quarterback, but I think that's kind of that position in that offense is more plug and play than it is like Cam Ward being this exceptional talent. Could be wrong.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. They're all going to be great games, and I'm not surprised if it goes the other way. Texas at Ohio State, the bell of the ball here, the biggest matchup of the weekend. It's pretty cool. You get a number 1 versus number 3. So it's really exciting. Noon kick too. Georgia fans are going to get a chance to watch this. If you're going to Athens, get a chance to watch this one in full before Georgia and Marshall. Ohio State, this line has been changing a lot, and it's probably going to keep changing. This is Wednesday when we're recording this, so got off ESPN bets what it is now. Ohio State -1.5. So if it's at Texas, you can see it the other way here. But you're in Columbus at the Shoe, great environment. Ohio State fans, I think, know how to do a noon kickoff because they've had to do so many against big teams better.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's actually it's not like a noon environment in the SEC. Okay, because that's
they know what they're doing.
They do. Okay, you give that to a SEC team, they're like, man, are you kidding me? It's not 4 o'clock or 7 or whatever. Total 47.5. I think both offenses struggle here. I love the defenses for both teams. I really do. I think they're both top 5 defenses in the country. And then you have the quarterback situation. Obviously, Julian Sayin is a little behind Arch here. 4 appearances to his name. Arch has 12 over 2 seasons, including 2 starts. So I think Arch is going to edge him here as far as quarterback play goes. My biggest question is, biggest one, I have several, but biggest one for Ohio State is, how is your running back room going to take a step here? Are they going to provide the same punch as Trevion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins this early in the season? Not week 4, week 5, week 10, this early, because Texas is going to be really physical up front, and you have to be able to run the ball. Georgia was able to run the ball, not all last year almost, but against Texas they did, control the line of scrimmage. Ohio State, I think, defensively can against this Texas running back room, but I think Texas has the edge at tailback, quarterback, receiver for Ohio State, DB. I like DB's Ohio State. This is a really tough game to call, i.e. the 1.5-point line. And honestly, I think considering the starts for Arch, and I feel a little bit better about their running game, I'm going to go Texas here in a close one.
I like Ohio State. I just don't see it. I mean, I like Ohio State. I mean, it's just like the team.
It's a tough one to call, buddy. It's a tough one to call.
No idea about Sayin. No idea. But the shoe is tough. I like Arch Manning. I just think that Ohio State is stacked, and I just have a lot of faith in Ryan Day to get quarterbacks ready. That's all, right? Yeah. And I could say the same for
Sarkisian,
Stark and Arch, but
right.
I guess Knowles did leave the defense. I don't know. It's a tough one, but I think Ohio State's a good football team. And I think they're going to be in a position where they are not, despite winning the national championship last year, I don't think they're going to be like resting on their laurels, right? I think they're chomping at the bit to do it again. So
yeah,
I like Ohio State.
That's fair, man. No, you're getting no crap from me on that, because I've been thinking about this one for a long time. But we'll see what happens. I think it's whoever gets the ball last, something like that. I hope it's a close game. I think part of me is just saying that because I want that, but we'll see what happens. But Artie, thanks so much for your time, man. Georgia guys, Georgia fans, Dog Nation, Georgia NIL store, get 20% off while using promo code UGA Live, streaming live, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Thanks for joining us. Biggest show we've had for a long time. It's a long one. It's a packed one. So we thank you for watching through Georgia versus Marshall. The Dogs get a win, hopefully on Saturday afternoon in Athens.
Go Dogs.